Well, hey there, my name is Whit George, and I am the lead pastor here at Church on the Move in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I have been pastoring here for going on 3 years. This July will be our church's 33rd birthday and my third anniversary as pastor of the church. If you don't know, my dad, Pastor Whit George, started our church in 1987 when I was 11 years old, and I stepped in as the pastor in 2017. And kind of fun in the first 5 years of pastoring, I get to deal with the COVID-19 crisis. Hooray! When this whole thing started, I am sure our situation was like so many of you. The world gets turned upside down, and you're trying to figure out how are you going to do ministry and what's it going to look like, and can we even do ministry? I want to share a thought with you that has been in my heart since the beginning of this. And it's based off a principle that I've learned from watching my dad follow God for all these years, and that's this. God never leads us to dead ends. He never leads you to a spot where he goes, well, that's the end of it for here, you're stuck. So when this whole thing happened and we weren't able to use our buildings anymore, and all of us were kind of shut out from the physical locations of our church, I knew that this wasn't the end and that this wasn't just some kind of detour. The way I started framing it to our church right from the beginning was, this is not a detour, it's a bridge to a new normal. And I think that's a really helpful distinction, because if you think about a detour is when you're, driving down a road and the road is shut. Maybe there's construction, maybe a bridge is out. You can't go any further on the road that you're on. And so what do? You have to pull off the road, the main road, right? And you go back into a neighborhood a lot of times and you're making turns and you don't know where you're going. But eventually you end up right back on the same road that you were on. And I think for a lot of leaders, both in the church and outside, the way they were thinking about this was, this is just a detour. We're just pausing. We're just kind of stuck here for a little bit. We can't do what we would always do. But one day, hopefully soon, everything's going to go back. And there was this sense of which we were like, let's all just hold our breath, right, as long as we can until our buildings can be operational again. I didn't see this whole season that way. I saw this as a bridge to a new day, a new destination. That's what a bridge does. It connects you from one place that you were to a place you could not access before without that bridge. And that's what I think this season is. It's not a detour, it's a bridge. Before this whole thing happened, we had online church. Or I might say we broadcasted our services online to whoever was watching. We put very little effort into it. Basically, it was a switch that we flipped and said, here, if you want to watch, you can. And so for people who couldn't be physically at church that weekend, they could join us online. Of course, when this whole thing happened, everybody's now online, and it caused us to start putting effort into the online church experience like we had never done before, like I'm sure you did. But here's what shifted for us. We started asking ourselves, is this really a church opportunity? In other words, can there be a biblically functioning church? Can it happen online? Can God meet people here? And what was interesting is before all of this, I would have said, I'm not so sure. And I wasn't really willing to invest a lot of resource into figuring that out. When this was forced upon me, it forced some innovation and it forced us into a whole new arena that we weren't in before. And wouldn't you know it, we were seeing an increase in ministry and we were seeing the church be the church online. And so it's been really, truly amazing. We've connected with people in parts of the world that have just blown our minds as to where people are jumping in from. We're seeing people want to serve in their local communities that are not here in our local community. And we're asking ourselves as pastors, what then does this mean for our future? When we can start physically gathering again, what does this mean for us? And the promise that I've made to our church and to our online community is that we're not giving up on you. We're not going to stop meeting like this once this is over, because we have never seen this as a detour. We've always seen it as a bridge. And so for us, we're looking at this as a whole new opportunity for a whole new way to reach a whole new group of people. And that's exactly what we're seeing. So we're investing into that, exploring it, trying to figure out exactly how it's all going to work. And there are a lot of unknowns still. We don't have all the answers. We haven't figured it all out, but we're just taking one step at a time. And this is what I would say to you, just in your context, is keep in mind that every time God led his people somewhere, it was never to just stop and plant them and say, well, that's it. That's the end of the line. When they came to the banks of the Red Sea, they thought they were done, but they weren't done. There was a way that they did not know through that Red Sea that they weren't aware of. When God's people went into exile, it was never just to scatter them and leave them in exile. There was something going to happen in that exile. God was going to bring his people back. There's always a way forward. And I think when you take that approach with God, it's the approach of faith. It's the approach that I may not know where we're going next. It says in the book of Hebrews that Abraham left the land that he was in, and he journeyed to a land that he did not know. He left and went, even though he didn't know where he was going. And I think that's what it is to follow God as we venture into this whole new online experience and what's possible here. We are journeying into a land that is unknown to us. But isn't that what it is to follow God? And here's the way that I see it. I just go, maybe God has arranged things so that there is the technology, so that there is the way and the means to communicate to people these days that we wouldn't have had just 10, 15, 20 years ago, where we can reach more people like we have never done before. And so for us, we're just saying we want to lean into that and use it and watch what God does. So we're really excited about this whole new season, and we don't know what the church is going to look like on the other side of this, but we know that God isn't leaving us at a dead end, that he's moving us forward in the way that God has always done with his people, one step at a time.